After our family trip, I found a $12,000 charge on my credit card. My sister Tessa said, "It was for the whole family." "Don't ruin the vibe," I smiled. "Then you're going to love what's coming." That's about when the floorboards started to shake, and I wish I could say I was shocked. But honestly, I wasn't annoyed. Yes, deeply poetically annoyed. But shocked? That would have required believing that, just once, my family wouldn't find a way to screw me over and then gaslight me into calling it quality time. The charge hit the Monday after we got back. I was still in the same hoodie I wore on the flight, half asleep in my apartment, staring at a suitcase that hadn't even made it out of the trunk. Then my phone buzzed. Bank notification. $12,874.20. Shared card charge. You know, the shared card I had very stupidly volunteered for, to keep things simple. By things, I meant a modest beachfront Airbnb. By simple, I apparently meant a luxury villa with a private chef, couples massages, and a sunset boat cruise. Things Tessa had accidentally upgraded us to the day before the trip. I blinked at the number 5 times. Refreshed the app twice, because maybe the banking system had decided to prank me for fun. It hadn't. The money was gone. My account looked like it had survived a robbery and was now trying to act normal, but the trauma was obvious. In every line item, so I texted her, "Hey, just saw a $12,000 charge on the Airbnb card. Was that supposed to be split?" 3 minutes later, Tessa. "It was for the whole family. Don't ruin the vibe, of course. God forbid I ruin the sacred family ritual of pretending everything's fine while Ellie pays for it." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I did, and what I wanted. To send was the kind of message that would get screenshotted and shared to the group chat with the caption, "Ellie's being weird again." So instead I took a breath and went with calm, me. "No worries. Just making sure everything's clear. You'll see a reversal come through soon," she replied with a thumbs up. That's when I opened my laptop, and that's when the floorboards started shaking. Then, "You'll love what's coming." She didn't respond. She probably assumed I was being sarcastic, which, to be fair, usually am, but not this time. I closed the app, took a slow sip of cold coffee, and opened a spreadsheet. I had a name in mind before I'd even typed the first line. Expenses. Tessa won't pay back again. XLSX. By the time I finished the first tab, I'd added 5 more columns. I wasn't just going to ruin the vibe. I was going to end the whole playlist. Now, in case you think I'm overreacting or that maybe this was a one-time thing, I'd like to offer a short and deeply depressing montage of moments from my financial life over the last 10 years. Age 23, Tessa borrows $500 to cover an emergency vet bill. The pet, a goldfish. The emergency. She forgot to feed it. The $500 never returned. Age 26, she borrows my car for 2 hours. Comes back 3 days later with a cracked bumper and a new boyfriend. Age 29, I co-sign a lease for her because she can't afford the deposit. She gets evicted for throwing an engagement party that included a live DJ and a smoke machine in a 1-bedroom. So, no, this wasn't new. It was just bigger, more dramatic, and frankly more expensive than usual. After thefication, the group chat stayed lively for exactly 3 days. Tessa sent pictures of sunsets and cocktails with captions like "family vibes" and "best trip ever." Everyone responded with heart emojis and fire gifts. No one mentioned the money. I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't care. I deeply cared, but I'd learned something important over the years. If you react too fast, you become the problem. If you wait just long enough, you become the story. On Thursday, Tessa called. "Hey, big sis." She chirped like she hadn't just digitally mugged me 4 days earlier. "Hey," I said flatly. "So, about the card. I know it looks like a lot, but it all balanced out, right? You got the points?" Yes, the frequent flyer points. A whole 900 of them. Enough to buy half a soda at the airport. "You charged 12 grand, I said." She sighed. Sighed like I was the one who was being difficult. "Well benefited. Don't be weird. You're doing fine. You have that job. That's like really stable or whatever." I closed my eyes. I could practically hear her flipping her hair through the phone. "I work in it," I said. "Not as a human ATM," she laughed. "You're so dramatic." Anyway, I got to run. We're looking at places in Tahoe for Labor Day. Talk soon. She hung up before I could answer. I stared at my wall for a solid 10 minutes after that call, listening to the faint buzz of my fridge and wondering if it would be cheaper to just let it devour me, then deal with another family trip. Then I opened a folder on my desktop called Receipts. I hadn't looked at it in a while, but it was there. Years of emails, Venmo screenshots, canceled checks. I wasn't saving them to be petty. I was saving them because I knew deep down this day would come. I had every bill I ever covered. Every time someone said, "Can you spot me just for no?" and then vanished like a magician with my money. That night, I Googled lawyers who specialized in small claims and fraud. And by Friday, I had a meeting booked with someone named Mr. Halpern, who sounded exactly like the type of man who wouldn't flinch if someone called him a buzzkill at brunch. Saturday afternoon, I drove to my parents' house for what was now being called a casual family get-together. Translation: Tessa had something to announce and needed a warm, captive audience. I parked down the street, took a deep breath, and pulled the folder out of my bag. Inside was a copy of every receipt, every charge, and a note from Mr. Halpern, who, to my delight, had agreed to stop by personally. I knocked once, and Tessa opened the door, wearing a flowy white dress and the expression of someone who'd just been told she was the moment. "Ellie," she squealed, hugging me like I hadn't been silently plotting legal action for a week. "Come in, we're just getting started." She led me into the living room where Mark was holding a tray of mimosas like a man who still thought this was going to end well for him. I smiled politely, dropped my bag by the coat rack, and sat down on the edge of the couch. Tessa raised her glass. "So happy we're all here. Seriously, this is what family's all about." I nodded once. "Then you'll love what's coming." And that's when the floorboards started shaking. The floorboards had started shaking. Not from some ghostly force or explosive karmic justice, unfortunately. Just someone heavy walking up the steps. Slow, deliberate footsteps that made the whole house vibrate like it knew something was about to go very, very wrong. Tessa didn't seem to notice. She was too busy raising her glass and soaking in the moment, like she'd just been crowned queen of Sunday brunch. I turned my head slightly toward the door and waited. That's all I had to do. Just wait. But we're not there yet. Let's rewind for a second, because the thing about people like Tessa is they don't become monsters overnight. It's a long game. A slow, exhausting erosion of boundaries wrapped in charm and just enough. But we're family guilt to keep you from blowing everything up too soon. You know those strong older sibling memes? The ones where someone is photoshopped holding the world together while everyone else sleeps peacefully. That was me. Except no one made a meme. I just quietly paid bills I didn't owe and smiled through gritted teeth while everyone else forgot their wallets for the 5th meal in a row. It started small. When I was 19, Tessa asked me to buy her concert tickets because she couldn't figure out the checkout page and promised she'd Venmo me immediately. She never did. But she did post a photo with the caption, "Front row manifested this." By 21, she had convinced our parents that her spring break trip to Cancun was an educational, cultural experience. Somehow, I was the one who loaned her the spending money because you've got that job now, right? That job. I was working at a phone store and eating instant ramen 5 nights a week. And every year it escalated. By 25, she'd asked me to co-sign her car loan. When I hesitated, Mom pulled me aside and said, "She's your sister, Ellie. Families help each other." Which in our family really meant you help. She spends. Tessa didn't thank me. She took a selfie with Thikis, tagged it 9 were self-made, and left me unread. You might be wondering, where were the parents in all of this? Let me paint a quick picture. My dad is the human equivalent of background noise. Spends most of his days scrolling through sports forums and emerging only to say things like, "Don't start drama or this again." My mom, on the other hand, is a master of the guilt smile. You know, the one that says, "I'm not mad, just disappointed, but also I expect you to pay for this." She doesn't yell. She just sighs a lot sighs and then says things like, "Tessa has a lot on her plate right now. You don't understand what it's like to be the youngest. You're doing well. Why can't you just be generous?" What they meant was you're responsible. Therefore, you owe use everything. So when the group trip came up, I already knew how it would go. Tessa messaged me 2 months before. "Tessa, family trip idea. Airbnb by the coast. Everyone splits it. You in?" What I should have said. Only if we all prepay and sign a blood oath. What I actually said? Sure, because I'm a coward, or was. I assumed splitting meant what normal people mean. Divide costs evenly and pay before the trip. But Tessa had a different vision. Turns out she upgraded the Airbnb without telling anyone. Booked a chef, booked a private cruise, added extras that made no sense for a family trip, like monogrammed robes and a personal beach mixologist. I still don't know what that means. And she put it all on my card because I was already on the booking. And when I found out it was for the whole family, don't ruin the vibe. Of course, back in the present, I was still sitting on that couch, trying not to choke on the scent of overpriced candle wax and Tessa's delusion. The footsteps were louder now. Mark looked toward the door, frowning slightly. He didn't know what was happening, but he could smell a shift in the air. I could tell that was fine. I wasn't in a rush. I pulled the folder from my bag and held it in my lap. Thick stack of papers, neatly tabbed, receipts, screenshots, a notarized letter from Mr. Halpern, and a breakdown of every expense tied to my card since 2017. I had charts. Tessa was still talking. She'd moved on to a story about how someone literally begged her to become an influencer. I mean, it's exhausting being this magnetic, she said, flipping her hair like she was being filmed. Mark chuckled and offered me a mimosa. I declined. I'd need my brain fully online for what was coming. That's when Mom shuffled in from the kitchen, holding a plate of avocado toast like it was a peace offering. "You're quiet, sweetheart," she said gently. "Everything okay?" I looked at her. Really? Looked. There was no awareness, no recognition that anything had gone wrong, no apology. "No, I heard about the charge. Let's talk." Just vibes and brunch and silence. "I'm fine," I said. "Just waiting for what?" she asked. I didn't get to answer because the door creaked open and someone stepped inside. He was tall, mid-60s, gray hair, neatly dressed, a black leather satchel over one shoulder. Tessa blinked. Hi, can we help you?" He adjusted his glasses. Calm professional. The kind of calm that means he doesn't need to raise his voice to destroy you. "I'm looking for Tessa Morgan," he said. She smiled automatically. "That's me." He opened his satchel, pulled out a single envelope, and handed it to her. "You've been served," he said. The room froze like someone had just yanked the battery out of the Bluetooth speaker madong. Tessa didn't move. Mark leaned forward, confused. Mom stood in the doorway, toast still in hand. Dad from the hallway muttered, "What's all this?" I stood up slowly and straightened my jacket. No yelling, no drama, just facts. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what Tessa hadn't realized yet, what no one had realized, was that the envelope in her hand, that was just the beginning. For someone who never stopped talking, it was impressive how silent Tessa got. She stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Her fingers didn't move. Her face didn't change. It was the quietest I'd ever seen her, like the part of her brain that usually generated spin, deflection, and hashtags had just short-circuited. Mark leaned toward her and whispered something, but she didn't respond. He reached for the envelope like he might open it himself. She jerked it away. "Good." Mr. Halpern, ever the professional, gave a polite nod and turned to me. "If you need anything else, you have my number." "I do," I said. "Thank you." He left the same way he came in, calm, unbothered, as if he had 6 more brunches to ruin before lunch. The silence that followed was awkward. To put it lightly, like someone had hit pause on a sitcom at exactly the wrong moment. Except no one was laughing, just Tessa, frozen with a legal envelope in her hands, and the rest of the family, looking like they'd walked into the middle of a play with no script. "What is this?" Mom asked finally, her voice low but sharp. Tessa didn't answer. Mark turned to me. "What the hell, Ellie?" It tilted my head. "Are you confused or just hoping I am?" Mark blinked. "You brought a lawyer to brunch." "I didn't bring him," I said. "He brought the law. There's a difference." Tessa finally found her voice barely. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You're suing your own sister?" I shrugged. "Not suing, just pursuing repayment formally, legally, since all other methods seem to be incompatible with your lifestyle. I told you I'd pay you back," she shouted. Really, when I pulled out my phone, because I've got our last 30 messages and not a single one includes an apology, a payment, or even a Venmo request. Unless I missed the part where don't ruin the vibe counts as financial restitution. Dad spoke up from behind his newspaper like he just remembered he had a daughter. "Ellie, come on. This is family." That line, I said, has been used to excuse everything from unpaid rent to stolen identity. So unless you're planning to say something original, maybe just sit this one out. His mouth opened, then closed. Back to the sports section. Mom stepped forward, placing her hands on the table like a disappointed guidance counselor. You could have talked to us first. I did, I said. For years. I mean, recently. You mean after the $12,000 unauthorized charge, I said. Or after the 5 years of being treated like an unlimited debit card with a Wi-Fi connection. Her lips pressed together. No comeback. Just that tight. Polite fury she wore whenever the truth made her look bad. I can't believe this, Tessa muttered. This is actually happening. You know what's wild? I said, neither can I. She looked up. Her eyes were glossy now, not from sadness, but from the shock of someone not backing down. You're blowing this way out of proportion. No, I said, sliding the second copy of the spreadsheet across the table. I'm finally giving this the proportion it deserves. She didn't touch it. Mark did. He flipped through the pages slowly, each one labeled dated, color-coded dinner charges, rental cars, deposits, the Airbnb dot, every dollar linked back to a date, a message, a screenshot. This is detailed, he said quietly. I work in it, I said. If I can recover files from a corrupted drive, I can certainly track down a missing 12 grand. I didn't know it would be that much, Tessa muttered. Then maybe don't put the entire resort economy of Santa Barbara in someone else's card. Mark put the spreadsheet down and cleared his throat. Okay, look, maybe we went overboard. I said. He paused. Fine, he said. Tessa went overboard, but can't we settle this quietly? Like outside of court? I nodded slowly. Sure, pay me back in full, plus legal fees, plus interest. He blinked. Are you serious? As a heart attack. Come on. That's not reasonable. He stood up.
Neither was putting a 2000 espede on my credit card because you wanted matching robes for a sunset photo.
Tessa made a sound. Half gasp, half rage burst. This is humiliating, she hissed. Correct, I said. That's what happens when you make someone the villain in private, and they decide to play the hero in public. You've always hated me, she said suddenly. That's what this is really about. I laughed. I couldn't help it. No, Tessa. I've always pitied you. There's a difference. She stood up too, fists clenched. You think you're better than me? No, I said I think I'm done letting you convince me I'm worse. And with that I turned to go. Ellie, Mom called out. Please don't do this. I looked back. I already did. The door clicked shut behind me. And for the first time in years I didn't feel guilty. Not the polite kind of guilt that hangs in your throat after every family gathering. Not the quiet ache in your chest when someone says, "You've always been the strong one." Not the half-whispered, "Can you help just this once?" That turns into a routine. No guilt, just air. I walked to my car in silence, ignoring the buzzing in my pocket. Texts, no doubt. Apologies shaped like accusations. Confused anger. Maybe even a voice message or two that started soft and ended with, "I can't believe you'd do this to us." I didn't check. Instead, I drove. No destination in mind, just movement, just distance. My phone buzzed again and again, but he let it. I let the sound blend into the background like it had all my life. Eventually, I pulled over at a small park, empty, quiet. I sat under a tree and just existed, breathe in, breathe out. Somewhere, Tessa was probably pacing and yelling. Mark was Googling legal terms. My parents were pretending they hadn't seen this coming, even though they absolutely had. And me? I was calm. But I wasn't done. Not yet. 3 weeks. That's how long it took before the silence started to shift into noise. At first, there was nothing. Just the expected fallout, blocked numbers, frozen smiles in group chats, family group texts quietly dying. No one said my name, but you could feel it hanging there like a coffee stain no one wanted to scrub. Then the damage control began. Tessa sent a clarification email to the family claiming the whole thing had been a miscommunication. She said I'd offered to pay and then changed my mind and that I'd blown things out of proportion by bringing in a lawyer. She didn't mention the $12,000 charge or the years of unacknowledged support, just the narrative she could twist into a victim role. Classic Tessa. Mark tried a different route. He'd pay back a third of the money if I dropped everything. We declined. Mr. Halpern, to his credit, handled it with the kind of dignity I will never master. He simply replied, "We're not interested in partial accountability." A few days later, Tessa posted a vague Instagram story, a close-up selfie, puffy eyes, caption, "Some people will betray you the second you stop giving." Cue the sad playlist and 3 passive-aggressive Bible verses. I didn't respond. What was I going to say? Actually, I betrayed you by enforcing a boundary. Sorry, I didn't Venmo the emotional labor tax you think I owe you for being the fun one. No, I was done playing their PR game. Instead, I focused on my life, which for the first time in years, felt like it actually belonged to me. I got a raise at work. Apparently, showing up not emotionally hollowed out by family drama makes you better at your job. Who knew? I started sleeping better. Ate meals that weren't delivered in a panic between passive-aggressive phone calls. I moved into a new apartment, one with no shared walls, and no risk of surprise visits. I changed my number, updated my emergency contacts, put Aunt Claire at the top of the list. She was the only one who'd reached out after everything happened. She sent a card, handwritten, short and simple. You did the right thing. I wish I'd done it years ago. Claire, I cried when I read it, not because it was sad, but because it was the first time someone in the family acknowledged what it had cost me to finally say no. 2 months after the brunch incident, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside was a check for $1,000, and a note asterisk she left me. Said I wasn't loyal enough to her during the whole thing. I should have stopped her sooner. I know this doesn't fix it, but it's a start. Mark asterisk. I didn't reply, but I didn't tear it up either. It was the first money I'd ever gotten back. The civil suit didn't need a courtroom. Her lawyer folded after refused to settle. She's paying it back now, every cent, not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice left. As for Tessa, last I heard, her account had been flagged for suspicious activity. Not from me, just karma doing its thing. She lost a brand deal with a travel agency after someone forwarded them screenshots of the legal filing. She claimed defamation. The agency quietly cut ties. The whispers in the family haven't stopped. Some blame me, some blame her. Some pretend it never happened. That's fine. Let them squirm in the silence because for the first time in my life, I'm not stuck in it. A few weeks ago, I was at a small neighborhood cafe sipping coffee, reading, and minding my own business, when someone I went to high school with walked in. They recognized me. We chatted for a minute, catching up. Then they lowered their voice and said, "Hey, I heard what happened with your sister. That's wild." I braced myself for judgment, but instead they just nodded and added, "Good for you." Most people never get out. I didn't know what to say, just smiled, but it stuck with me. You know what no one tells you? Peace is weird at first. You expect it to feel like fireworks, a big celebration, a victory parade with people cheering your name. But it's not, it's quiet. It's eating dinner without a single text asking for help. It's not flinching when the phone buzzes. It's walking past the bank app on your phone and not breaking into a cold sweat. It's silence and realizing that silence isn't empty. It's space. Room for your own voice, your own thoughts, your own life. And that's worth more than anything they ever took. I still think about it sometimes. That moment, the envelope, the look on Tessa's face when someone finally told her no and backed it up with paperwork. Part of me wishes it didn't have to go that far. That someone else would have stepped in sooner. That maybe, just maybe, my parents would have said, "This isn't okay," instead of, "Can't we just move on?" But another part of me knows if I hadn't done it then, I never would have done it at all. If I hadn't made a scene, I'd still be paying for hers. Sometimes I still wonder if I went too far. Should I have tried one more conversation? Another chance to explain how much it hurt? Another round of quiet disappointment that no one heard me? Or maybe, just maybe, this was the only way they'd ever listen. What do you think? Did I go too far? Or was I finally just setting a boundary they couldn't ignore? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear what you'd have done. And if you made it to the end of this story, don't forget to subscribe for more just like this. Because sometimes the only way to stop being the family's doormat is to close the door.